it's 11 o'clock, which means it's time for tomorrow's newspapers tonight. Join us over the next hour to find out why the assisted dying bill could cost the NHS but save on the Lecky bill. Why Russia will show films to get the people in the mood for breeding. I've heard of those sites. And when the tractors attack, or more importantly, where will the tractors attack? My guests tonight are Leo Kearse and Steve N. Allen. They're standing by. This is Headliners. But before tomorrow's news, let's go to tonight's headlines with Sophie Reaper.
A very good evening to you. The time is just after 11 o'clock and these are your latest headlines. What's being described as pension megafunds are set to be created by the Labour government to help unlock billions of investment in businesses and infrastructure. Tomorrow, the Chancellor is expected to deliver a speech at Mansion House in which she's set to outline this overhaul in Britain's pension fund industry. Rachel Reeves is expected to say that by consolidating assets into a handful of funds run by professional fund managers, it will allow them to invest more into various assets. The government has also said these reforms could unlock £80 billion of investment into new businesses and critical infrastructure. Over in the US now, and President-elect Donald Trump was hosted by current President Joe Biden today in Washington. The two sat down at the White House this afternoon for a meeting designed to demonstrate a smooth handover of power. Earlier, the Reuters news agency reported that during the meeting, Biden told Trump he was, quote, looking forward to a peaceful transition, whilst Trump stated that, in his words, politics is tough, but it's a nice world today. Back to UK politics now, and the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, has criticised Sir Keir Starmer at PMQs today. That was over council tax, national insurance contributions and the budget. The Conservative leader also pressed the PM on decisions he made at the COP29 climate summit in Baku.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the Prime Minister back from his trip to Azerbaijan, where he has unilaterally made commitments that will make life more experienced for everyone back home.
I'm very proud of the fact that we're restoring leadership on climate to this country, the UK, because that will be measured in lower bills on energy independence and the jobs of the future. And in relation, and she may have missed, but on Monday I was very pleased to announce a huge order into jobs in Hull for blades for offshore wind. If she's opposed to that sort of action, she should go to Hull and say so.
Residents in Valencia have been preparing for further heavy rain and storms just 2 weeks after flash flooding caused devastation across the country. A Spanish weather agency issued an amber warning yesterday, forecasting between 40 and 120 millimetres for the area. Residents have been advised to stay at home and volunteers have been told to pause their clean-up efforts while further safety preparation measures are put into place. And never mind the age-old question of a white Christmas. Could we be in for a white November? The Met Office has announced that the UK could see a flurry of snow as early as this Sunday, as temperatures have already plummeted below zero in certain parts of the country. They say that Arctic winds moving southward will bring freezing weather and with it what they called the possibility of snow. I'll believe that when I see it. That's all for me for now, but now it's back to Headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Thursday's top stories with three top comedians. Let's have a quick look at what Steve and Leo will have to deal with on Thursday's front pages. We have the Daily Mail. Now council tax to rise by £110. The Telegraph. Police in appalling attack on free speech. The Independent. Revealed Trump push to sabotage Starmer's Chagos Islands deal. The Eye, Labour will miss its new homes pledge, says official leading plan. The Metro, Trump's defence chief is a TV host. The Daily Star, Whittle in the shower to save the planet. Finally, some common sense. Those were your front pages. Let's have a closer look at those front pages. We'll start with the Telegraph, Steve.
Loads on the Telegraph. I mean, they talk council tax. We'll talk more about that in a bit. 30 clergy may face sack in abuse scandal, so there is some good news on there. But main story, police in appalling attack on free speech. This is the story about Alison Pearson, who, look, I mean, I don't normally agree with the kind of thing she says, and which means it means something when I think this is appalling. It doesn't matter whether you agree with her or not. What you shouldn't do is do a tweet, then get a knock on the door and think, oh, it's the police have turned up. What's this about? And they say they're investigating in a non-crime hate incident way a tweet from the past. And she says, oh, which tweet? Oh, we can't tell you that. No, because you might work out how to defend yourself. And they says, OK, well, then who's the accuser? And they check the paperwork and go, oh, no, not an accuser, it's a victim. Well, it's game, set and match. You can't defend yourself. They already know it's a victim, so you must be in the wrong.
I mean, they use the word Kafkaesque sometimes, and it's overused and like Orwellian. But this really is as close to Kafka's trial as you can get. It is the sheer vagueness of it is the most sinister aspect.
I'm amazed she's not started to use the word ovular, which I believe they debate about that in there. But this, for me, always just comes down to why are the police being involved in non-crime things, in the same way that mountain rescue shouldn't be involved in non-mountain-related rescue activities. Like, if you've got a non-fire thing happening, don't call the fire brigade. So the police... Old
lady has a fall in the high street and the mountain rescue, generally speaking, don't get involved.
Exactly, that would be a non-mountain fall incident. If ever any of these tweets turn into... Because the new criteria is they shouldn't be recorded unless they're likely to escalate. I'm guessing Alison Pearson wasn't going to go and commit crime. Well, she's busy writing columns that offend people.
It's had a year. It's a year-old tweet. Yeah, so if there were... Perhaps it is like murder, where it has to be a year and a day before you can be sure that it hasn't been murder. You have to die from the action. Yeah. Perhaps with the tweet it's the same thing. If they were waiting to see if it was actually a hate crime incident, but it's actually a non-crime incident.
And she's assuming it's related to tweets that she posted about Hamas's attack on Israel. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, you know, who they attack and who they don't attack. I mean, this is what authoritarian regimes do: is they have a law that everybody could be seen to have broken, so then they can pick and choose who's broken it. And this is kind of what we got here. And I spoke to her last night, and I mean, I do agree with everything she says. I'd follow that woman into the gates of hell. And you know, she's amazing. She's an incredibly strong woman, obviously, and this is, you know, we might imagine that this is getting all this attention. It's going to be great. It's going to bring down the stupid laws. You know, this is going to make police forces look at how they deal with these things. But the reality is that she's genuinely scared of what could happen next. They've been so vague. She doesn't know. I mean, other people she mentions in the article she wrote yesterday, people go to jail, are held in jail. The process is the punishment for this kind of stuff. We've seen with other people like Marion Miller, who was accused of hate crime for a tweet with a suffragette ribbon, which was perceived to be a noose. I mean, this is all just absolute nonsense. The police should stay well away from policing any form of speech. And thank God for Donald Trump, and thank God for Elon Musk keeping speech free. Donald Trump has said if Europe continues to enforce these authoritarian rules on its citizens and take away its citizens' rights, then they're going to pull out of NATO. So they're using NATO as a tool to sort of project Western values on communist countries, such as, I mean, I can only really describe Britain as a communist country now. You don't get stuff like this in a free, liberal Western country.
I certainly think, I stop short of saying communist just yet, but it certainly has far more sinister echoes of East Germany, the lives of others and that sort of thing than I'm comfortable with. I don't know whether it's significant that Alison Pearson as well is an old-school legacy journalist. She is not a creature of the social media age. Yeah. This is not a woman who has risen to the top, like, I will just say it, for instance, Narinda Kaur, who seems to make a living out of being disobliging on Twitter. I certainly wouldn't call the police on her, but I could see why people would go, oh, my goodness, the world would be a better place without her hideous social media presence. Alison Pearson has written best-selling books and has been a legacy journalist within The Telegraph and other titles, I think, for, 30 years? I mean, it's absurd that a woman of this stature Thatcher. Really.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's an issue here with it possibly being retribution from the police force, because she's been critical of the police force, Essex Police Force, before. She's helped her friend with a domestic violence case, and the police, complained about the language she used. So, I mean, I think we need an investigation to see what the internal comms of the police force are, to see if this is actually sanctioned by higher up as a retributive action.
I couldn't agree more. We have another important story on the front page of the Telegraph, Steve.
Are we going to talk about the assisted dying
yes.
issue? So this is Wes Streeting, look, when it comes to actually debating the bill, almost a separate story. You'll come up with good reasons for and good reasons against. Wes Streeting is not in favour of it, but the reason he's come up against it is it will cost money. Yeah. So some of the money that he's dishing out in his NHS, well, the
NHS cost, which will no longer be used on the patient who no longer lives.
Yeah, that's why it's the stupidest argument, isn't it? Whether you're for or against
it's almost drawing attention to the unspoken motivation that many suspect lies behind the bill.
The savings you're going to make, Wes, is what we're thinking.
I mean, it's literally a question of bending over and pulling out the plug in some instances, isn't it?
You can see the smart meter slow down.
I do find the whole debate... There is a lot of disquieting, dystopian edge to it again. Two dystopias on one front page. Some people are saying the Humanist Society today said that if members of Parliament feel that they support the bill in principle but have not been satisfied with its practical application, they should vote for it anyway. Now, that really doesn't sound to me like that's how you pass laws. You're like, yes, I would generally like to see people killed, on the NHS, but I'm not quite sure on the detail yet. I mean...
No, absolutely. And I think there's a wider issue of legislation not receiving the same level of scrutiny and debate that it used to receive in the two houses. And, I mean, this obviously would. In Canada, where they've got a similar assisted dying bill, I mean, it's used to save the state money. If somebody's homeless, if somebody needs an expensive operation, they offer it as an option.
Well, as they've said, if somebody has crossed the border from America to get away from Trump because they're depressed.
Would you like us to kill you? Yes. I mean, surely the state shouldn't be, jumping to killing people as a first response. And it's interesting in Canada how, everybody was reassured that it wouldn't be used like that. There'd be all these safeguards, and straight away, pretty much, within months, it's being used to kill young people and
in the
21-year-olds
as well, not just in Canada, which might be acceptably regarded as a strange alien nation. But,
for a minute, I was going to say, which is acceptable. If you're getting rid of Canadians, we're OK with that.
If you see enough moose crossing the road, the world seems strange to you. Can we move on to the Metro, Leo, and an extraordinary appointment by the clown-in-chief?
Yes, so they say, shock appointment to lead world's biggest military. Trump's defence chief is TV host. Now, what have they got against TV hosts? I would love a go at them.
Some of the worst people you'll ever meet.
We could have a department each, couldn't we? We could clean it out.
I think you do a great job.
I think as good a job as Wes Streeting.
But yeah, this is the new defence secretary in the US. So Donald Trump's just appointed him. They've got a picture of him there with his shirt off, ready to go into battle against the Taliban. He's got a lot of interesting tattoos. Christian tattoos. He's got Deus Vult,
on which his bicep.
Isn't that a crusade? Isn't that something they said in the Crusades? Yes. I mean, the good thing about...
Pope Urban X, I think. It's not directly quoted.
I mean, if we did have crusades, if the English Church did have crusades again, at least they wouldn't have to go all the way to the Middle East, thanks to mass immigration. But yeah, this is this guy, what's he called? Pete Hegseth. He's 44. Yeah. I mean, they say he's got no experience in government. That's not true, and it's probably not useful to have experience in government. If you're indoctrinated into the blob, you're not going to be good at draining the swamp. So he's served in Afghanistan and Iraq. So it's like having a doctor, lead the NHS. I think it's a good idea.
And then he's commented on it a lot on Fox News, which is an extraordinary, venerable station, which we admire.
Yeah, Wallace had served, hadn't he? And he was, and he was one of the better.
Start somewhere.
But also one of the better... No, I think he did well in terms of being the Defence Secretary because he kind of had a sense of knowing what he was talking about.
I suppose people will say he's had no experience of running a large department. Obviously, within the British government, you move from one cabinet post to another overnight sometimes.
Yeah. But that's what the blob's for, isn't it? I mean,
exactly. I think, to play devil's advocate, he does look a bit of a wild card, but clearly the people who voted for Trump did not vote for Trump so that they get a standard conventional Republican cabinet just with a crazy wild guy kind of fun times, you know.
And look, of these appointments so far, none of them have been to family members, so this is way better than Mark 1.
Yeah.
There was an awful lot of, like, because it's hard to sack a son-in-law, whereas these people, if they don't do a good job, they could be fired.
No, Trump knows what he's doing this time round. They've spent a lot of time planning. This isn't the sort of chaos and fudging it of the first time round. So yeah, they've hit the ground running. They know exactly what they're doing.
They have been. The military, the Secretary of State, the Foreign Office and so on, they have been a lot more militaristic than I think some people are saying, possibly even neoconservative. And it doesn't look like there's going to be this kind of isolationist principle at work that a lot of people were worrying about.
Yeah, that's good.
So Republicans,
we're all happy about that.
Republicans are always isolationist in opposition because it sounds good. We're not going to give them any more money.
Well, you've got to make them fear the finger, haven't you, on the trigger? I mean, the Times...
To the Times, up the top, they do tease this one. Middle-aged women keep their hands off our younger men. But you're saying that in the Times, I think you're going to the wrong market there. But business, the picture, I do want to mention the picture. Donald Trump pops in to see Joe Biden.
Incredibly convivial.
Biden looks really happy. He's an old white man. This is a good time for him.
And he shafted Kamala, let's be honest.
He did say he was the one man who could beat him. Maybe he was right at the moment. He can't be proved
and
wrong.
He definitely voted for Trump.
Yeah,
well, he wore the hat as well.
That's that grin, but yeah.
The main story, business backlash over budget. Shops say the speed and scale of Rees reform will lead to customers paying more. We're used to paying more right now, straight through the nose. But staff losing jobs, economy slowing down. It is often this, isn't it? It is the scale is the secondary thing. The speed of change is the thing that impacts an economy. So it's all very well saying, like, we've got these things we wish to achieve in the budget. You want to do them over a longer time. I understand the politics. You do the unpopular things at the start, and then at the end you give some money back. But you end up messing it up. You slightly lose trust by trying to do too much before people can swallow what you're doing.
Yeah, I think a lot of businesses have had to make very harsh decisions in the run-up to Christmas and so on. You hear about people being moved to fewer hours or even being let go. There's all kinds of implications with the national insurance. It is, again, that fear that people come into this kind of these responsibilities without having ever run a business and persuaded that they're almost infinitely elastic.
Oh, yeah, Reeves is she's not somebody who knows what she's doing.
No.
From what I've seen, I mean, businesses are getting hammered on so many. It's not just the national insurance, the minimum wage, and then, you know, with farmers being hammered as well, the cost of food is going to skyrocket, I reckon. I mean, if I was to scrape around and find some positives, I'd say it's going to nudge businesses to invest, you know, capital investment in technology and automate processes.
In American technology in particular.
Yeah, which I think we absolutely need right now. And also, you know, releasing more people into the labour market. We still do have quite a tight labour market. So, you know, economists say, oh, we need mass immigration because we've got all these jobs that we can't fill. It's like, well, we're going to be able to fill them if people are getting fired.
Yep, that's absolutely true. We'll get a few of them off benefits, but we'll talk about that later. Coming up, the Doge is here to thin out the deep state. Farage comes bearing bad news for Keir, and Liz Kendall is ruling nothing out. I say, this is Headliners, only on GB News.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Let's talk to Roger Kisker, who is the legal counsel for the Christian Legal Centre. Good morning, Roger. I'm really impressed, actually, by the fact that this school is taking the government to court on this. It's the only way we might get any sort of change. How important is it for these families who find a local religious school to keep their children in there? And are they all billionaires awash with cash?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this is about the fundamental right to educate your children in conformity with your religious beliefs. That's a right guaranteed under the European Convention of Human Rights. And any legislation, primary or secondary, has to be compatible with that convention. And so the basis of our claim is that this is an unfair tax because every country in the EU, first of all, it was by directive that there was no VAT on private education. In the Council of Europe, which is 56 member states, there are no other countries which put VAT on private education. This is an attack on school choice, and this is an attack on honest, hardworking parents who simply want to have their kids educated in a manner which they want them to be raised by themselves. And that, in a democratic nation, should be a given.
Obviously, Labour's logic being, just to provide some balance here, Roger, is that families who send their children to private school can afford the extra 20%. Whether they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children at school, they should be able to afford it, and the schools should be able to absorb some of that cost. And that money will be spent in the state sector. Can you see the logic behind the reasoning?
To be honest, I can't, because not every school is Eton. Not every parent has the means to send their children to private education.
GB News, the People's Channel. Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans, still joined by Stephen Allen and Leo Kearse. We have a comment from a viewer. Free speech, says Roy, should not be investigated by the police. Surely they have real crimes to solve. Quite right, Roy, though. Why we needed Roy specifically to observe that, I'm not sure. But there we are. Staying with Elon Musk and free speech, Leo, as indeed I think we might be throughout the show. He seems to be the Moriarty, as I said, at the centre of the world's news web now. Also, the Manhattan Project de nos jours, apparently.
Yeah. So I've got no idea what any of that meant. But
the Manhattan Project. It was the, the bomb.
Mixing several different analogies all at once. It's like you got Spider-Man in there, some Greek stuff. Then in the Second World War.
Sherlock Holmes used to say that Moriarty was like a spider at the centre of the web through which all the world's crimes were communicated. And this seems to be how they see Elon Musk these days.
Right.
This is what I think is this idea that he's at the centre. He's almost more than Trumpish. You know
he kind of is. I mean, he definitely, I think, swung the election for Trump, possibly even as much as the Amish and that squirrel that got shot did as well.
Yeah.
The squirrel, you never underestimate the impact of the state. I mean, what a better example of state overreach and government intrusion could you get than the state executing a squirrel? They can't do anything about illegal immigrants or anything, but they can stamp on a squirrel. And this is what this story is.
Sarah Alison Pearson, basically.
Yeah. And that's what this story is about. So Trump has named Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to head his Department of Government Efficiency, the Manhattan Project of our time. It's described as here, and its Department of Government Efficiency is Doge, which of course is the sort of mimetic, the meme coin.
The meme coin.
Yeah. So
Doge to the moon.
Yeah, and so they're gonna go through the government and unpick all the bloat and all the waste and properly drain the swamp this time. And who better to do it than Elon Musk? He did it with Twitter. He's done it. He runs incredibly efficient companies that achieve remarkable things. So if there's anybody who can, although he might be working with slightly less exceptional human capital than he is at SpaceX, but Javier Milei has shown how to do it in Argentina. You can literally slash. You can just go in. You don't even need to worry about it. Just fire loads of public sector workers. Nothing changes because most of them are just seat polishers and enjoy the benefit of the taxpayer not having to shove food down their gullet. And this is about more than money. As the state gets bigger, it gets more intrusive, as we saw with Peanut the squirrel getting shot, as we've seen with Alison Pearson getting the whiff of the gulag blown through a letterbox. And I think also with so many illegal immigrants being sent back, the private sector is going to need these workers. So, I hope some of these people like doing those jobs.
It's going to be great fun watching them attempt to struggle with job expectations in the private sector. There's like a first order and a second order effect here, isn't there? I think, because if you thin out a third of the bureaucracy, the deep state, whatever you want to call them, apparently it costs them trillions in America. So they will be gone, but also there will be a large number of people who are essentially who have benefited from the largesse that their departments distribute, and that will go as well.
Yeah.
I would imagine that's probably part of it. I think a lot of people have said, you know, in terms of these kind of mass deportations that he has in mind, they won't actually be necessary if you just cut the benefits, if you just cut the infrastructure which supports those people's ability to survive. They will go, well, I better go home then.
Yeah, maybe. Look, I mean, it depends what kind of trimming happens. There is a lot of trimming that we shouldn't even be arguing about. This doesn't need to be a right versus left, like getting upset at what Elon will do. Well, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, you should want efficiency, because they talk about efficiencies. Surely no one's in favour of inefficiency. I'd love more waste.
They are. There's a third of the deep state are.
Yeah. In general, it's like the populace should think, no, I want the government, regardless of how big it is, to act efficiently, and then you can argue about the size. The one thing I would disagree with is, don't think calling it the Manhattan Project is a good thing.
No.
I
mean, in the sense that it's a huge project which only which you have to take a deep breath and undertake, and it's expensive.
Killed a lot of people
no
in the
other
Far
regards.
East. It feels like specifically not good for those two towns.
Maybe they're going to move them all to Los Alamos. There's just going to be a huge camp in the middle of the desert where they go, get on with whatever you fancy, guys. Moving through the Trump inner circle from Elon Musk to Nigel Farage now, and he's got bad news for the Chagos chumps.
So Nigel Farage warns the Donald Trump administration is hostile to Labour's Chagos Islands surrender, in quote marks, as the US president-elect seeks legal advice about vetoing this, nixing it. Look, I must admit, before the news broke, I wasn't really on top of this. I didn't realise that James Cleverly had put so much work into lining up this deal. I didn't realise this was a shoe that was about to drop. So we hand the island to Mauritius, get a 99-year lease on the military base, Diego Garcia, which is my fake name online. And it's a risk. 99 years means that this government is never going to have to deal with any of the impact when we get close to losing this as a military place. I thought what they should do is ask the people actually involved, people from the Chagos Islands. Turns out they've all been moved to Crawley, as if they haven't suffered enough. And I say that as someone who used to do drive time on 102.7 Mercury FM. I know Crawley. But deep down, I don't know whether the outcome's good or not. What I do know is it should have been run through Parliament. We have a parliamentary democracy. You want to make something, you run it past the people who represent us and get to vote for it. They wouldn't have done a three-line whip. We could have actually had a vote on this.
The issue with America is that they feel that it tilts things in favour of China, right?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Nothing to do with handing it back to Mauritius as such.
But this is a strategic military base, and to say, we've got a 99-year lease. I mean, a lease is nowhere near as robust and defensible as actually owning it, as it being part of the empire. Yeah, totally. And isn't it mad that Trump's had to come in and save the British Empire from being destroyed by Keir Starmer? I mean, Trump's doing a better job, a better advocate for the British people.
Show a little bit of backbone.
But it is true that governments of all different colours have been lining this up. This is not just a Keir Starmer turn to point. I know what I want to do.
That's true.
So, it's been a direction that we've been moving, and because there's been some advisory thing which is not legally binding, and yet for some reason we're all thinking this needs to happen without running it through Parliament. What is wrong with us?
But there is also this issue, isn't there? It could be the first little tremor, first canary in the coal mine. America is going to start throwing its weight around with Britain and with the rest of Europe as well, because they are threatening to impose tariffs on exports and so on. Britain, of course, having lost a lot of advantageous trade with the EU, is hoping to maintain healthy relationship with America, and that will come with conditions. And this could be the first one that we see imposed, but I don't think it'll be the last.
No,
but obviously you've already mentioned free speech.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be fantastic. It's going to, Trump's going to push Europe to spend more on defence, which Europe should be doing, and it'll mean we possibly have national service, so our young people stop being absolute wet like fuds, and this is going to save the West, I think.
We're halfway through, and already we're going to save the West. Coming up, farewell from The Guardian. It's all going in the right direction. Pro-family propaganda in Mother Russia and treatment for the burqaphobes in Iran. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
Evening. Thanks for joining me for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A lot of cloud around tomorrow. For many, it'll be a duller day compared to today. But again, for most places, not going to be much rain around. It has been a very dry start to November, thanks to high pressure by and large. Changes are on the way, particularly as we go towards the weekend. There is a weather front just slowly working south, but it's kind of fizzling out, bumping up against that high pressure. Will still bring some rain and drizzle, just trickling its way south across parts of central and eastern England through the night. eventually turning things a bit damp across the southeast. Ahead of it, temperatures could dip down to single figures, but behind it with a lot more cloud, generally a milder night than last night. Could again be some mist and fog patches forming through parts of southern Scotland where we do get the clearer spells, and it will be a damp and potentially drizzly start to the day across southernmost counties of England, so a very different feel here compared to today. Elsewhere, most places just dry and cloudy, but there will be some holes in the cloud here and there. Thick cloud, though, for northern Scotland means a dull and damp and at times drizzly morning for the Highlands and the Western Isles. Let's go through the rest of the day. Not a great deal will change. I'm hopeful the rain and drizzle in the far south should scoot away, and also that skies will brighten over central and eastern England in particular. Decent chance of seeing some sunny spells coming through. Parts of southern and eastern Scotland may also brighten up, but for many it will just stay pretty drab. Where it does, 10 or 11 the top temperature, bit of brightness, could see those temperatures getting up into the teens, and again the wind's fairly light for most places. Friday we'll start to see a change, but again for most it'll be dry. Some light rain and drizzle over northern England, North Wales, turning wetter in the far northwest and windier here as well. This is an active weather front that's going to bring a change, getting gusty and turning soggy. Further south, generally dry with some sunshine, 10 or 11 degrees Celsius, but it's going to turn colder for all of us through the weekend.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. Our viewer of this section, Stuart, has said that no one has yet explained how the government's Chagos Islands decision was ever in the British interest. Good point, Stuart. The paper roundup again quickly now. For those of you who missed the very beginning of the show, we have the Daily Mail, now council tax to rise by £110. The Telegraph, police in appalling attack on free speech. Alison Pearson. The Independent revealed Trump pushed to sabotage Starmer's Chagos Islands deal. The Eye, Labour will miss its new homes pledge. Que Sera says official leading plan. The Metro, Trump's defence chief is TV host, or was. Daily Star, whittle in the shower to save the planet. That's your advice. So back to Musk world now, Leo, and after a brief diversion, the Graniad have decided to pull their account from his platform, perhaps infuriated that they can't spell X wrong.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd find a way. Be like
upside down.
ECKS. But yeah, this is The Guardian. They've announced they will no longer post content on Elon Musk's social media platform X, or as it's still known by everybody, Twitter. So they made an announcement to readers. I don't know why they have to announce it. It's like they'd announced they're leaving a party. And why? Oh, I'm leaving the party because there's pineapple in the potato salad and the sangria is warm. I don't know, like, just go. But they said they consider the benefits of being on the platform were now outweighed by the negatives, citing the often disturbing content and misinformation found on it. But there's going to be a bit less now because The Guardian's not going to be on it. And they post a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, they've complained here. They're moaning about far-right conspiracy theories and racism. But considering they find everything. The Guardian runs articles several times a day saying teacups are racist, pot plants are racist, the air is racist, everything is racist to these people. And some of the far-right conspiracy theories that they talk about are now just like 50% of the time they come true. Look at Joe Biden's cognitive decline. That was a far-right conspiracy theory, and then it came true.
they linked to a Zoe Williams article. It was a hyperlink from that exact phrase, far-right conspiracy theories, which she'd written a whole article about how dangerous X was now, what a slimy pit of disinformation. And one of the examples she gave was the far-right conspiracy theory that Algerian boxer was actually intersex, which is absolutely... And it was like, she was like, sued, Elon Musk was named in the libel trial. I was like, if you had just fact-checked that, if you had just scanned that, oh, no, that's been proven. I mean, you really can't make this stuff up.
Well, I don't think you can complain about the outcome of an argument if you refuse to take part in it. So if you're really bothered about what X is like, spend more time tweeting back, disagreeing with people, get stuck into the argument.
They could appoint a specific ex-correspondent, couldn't they? They don't have to have the whole newspaper there. It could just be their champion.
They don't have to worry about earning money through, like, advertising or whatever. They've got money to spend on people who don't do a proper job because they've got their trust paying for it. So, yeah,
absolutely. Auto Trader or whatever, wasn't it? Yeah, that they flogged.
I also think part of this is realising they're just getting some press out of it.
They might come back.
In The Guardian, which they could get anyway because they are The Guardian.
Oh, I also love that they do have a problem with Elon Musk using Twitter to politically get his point across. Have you seen your newspaper? Use a newspaper to do exactly that.
Yeah, and also they were
Whereas he's just one voice. Yes, the algorithms push him, but you can block him if you don't want to see it. You are capable of blocking him. I just find it is a little bit sad that all these people are mincing away now, though.
Yeah, but it just shows how indoctrinated and biased, and they want an echo chamber, and they're not getting on Twitter because Elon Musk allows everybody to speak. If The Guardian were worried about misinformation that influences elections, they should have left in 2020 when Twitter, under its previous owners, colluded with the Democrat governments, colluded with executive branches of the government to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story. It was classed as fake news. It was actually completely valid and true. And if they want to change people's minds and, make everybody better and more socialist, surely the people like me who are on Twitter are the ones they need to convince. So stay on Twitter and convince me.
Absolutely. Community note you. Steve, here is something to gladden the two young fathers on the panel this evening. A positive boost to fertility's image in Mother Russia.
Yeah, so Russia to ban child-free propaganda. It lists here films, advertisements and textbooks face restrictions as part of efforts to boost the low birth rate.
Yeah.
If you want to do this, you better silence parents. There is no greater propaganda against having kids than someone who's shattered with sickle down and going, I didn't get any sleep last night.
Well, that's interesting. Is that... I mean, I know you're joking, kind of, but is that true? Is it more... Is it, to the extent that it works at all, is it more likely to depress fertility to have lots of sitcoms where there are exhausted parents having, or to show shiny childless couples enjoying city breaks at the weekend?
Yeah. Well, neither. But I honestly don't think anyone's thought, I wanted a big family, but I saw that episode of Ally McBeal and now I'm not going to do. So the idea...
But it is cumulative, isn't it? Not an episode, but if, 500 hours of TV, you see about 3 children in the top right-hand corner briefly disappearing, it does have a sort of... It changes the culture.
It's saying that you won't be allowed to have films without there being kids in it. That's what happens in Hollywood when they have to make a sequel and they put a kid in for no good reason. The Mummy Returns.
2.5 Men.
Oh, yeah, absolutely ruined it. But the idea... I mean, obviously, if you have to have kids in everything they film, their porn websites are going to be dodgy, am I right? But it's going to... No one's ever sat there and watched Shawshank and thought, well, yeah, life without kids is pretty good.
The fact is, they've tried an awful lot of different measures around the world to improve fertility, and nothing really seems to be working, does it? I suspect money is the only thing that would.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of countries are actually offering. I think even in Russia, you get offered if you get increasing amounts as you have more children. You get tax breaks. They're trying that. I think in South Korea.
There was a utopia once in the mid-century where you got a tax break for every new children, and after the 4th child, you never had to pay income tax again.
That's a brilliant idea. What a brilliant plan.
A lot of people say he had some good ideas.
I mean, the issue is that under Stalin took Russian fertility for granted. It was almost a joke. He said, don't worry about the people we're sending to die. We'll replace them. But at the moment, there's a huge war going on. They're hitting an economic crash. They're living under, this brutal and increasingly authoritarian dictator. Yeah. That's not the ideal, situation to bring children into the world.
But it's a really good question. What is the ideal? South Korea has a fertility rate about 0.78 now. Now, they live in an absolute capitalist utopia. There's an extraordinary amount of buoyancy economically. They have everything they want, just don't have many gardens and parks. But that's obviously not ideal. Russia isn't ideal. Britain at the moment doesn't seem to be ideal. America isn't ideal. Australia's probably as close to ideal as anywhere, but even they're struggling to keep it up near 2.
I think we just deal with it I think robots and automation is going to come in and just take up the slack, just as we we don't have enough people to wipe those bottoms.
Yeah.
We're going to have robots to do it.
They'll be hosing them down. Leo, if
you don't want to get the first robot off the line, though. You know what I mean? Before they've tinkered the bugs, like just rips a cheek off.
Yeah, we need to just lower the pressure on that hose. If anyone needs proof of the tendency of the state to pathologise dissent, they hardly need to look as far as Iran, but for what it's worth, they are doing it too.
Yeah, so Iran sets up a mental health clinic to treat women who refuse to wear the hijab. The centre, called the Clinic for Quitting Hijab Removal.
You're not kidding.
The Clinic for Quitting Hijab Removal. I'm so addicted to taking my hijab off. And
it's like second nature. I have a meal and then...
So it's the Islamic Republic's latest attempt to quash female dissent that swept the country since the Women Life Freedom Uprising in 2022, after Mahsa Amini was raped and beaten to death by the Islamic police for taking her hijab off. Sorry to bring it down a little bit, but yeah, this is clearly some sort of Clockwork Orange type thing where your eyes will be held open. You'll probably watch all the horrors of the Western world, like videos by Cardi B.
Or just the back of some black cloth, presumably.
Yeah, maybe just... Can you see out of this little slit here? But yeah, I mean, how long till we have it in this country? I mean, I guess here the girls would be prosecuted if they didn't wear their hijab. They'd be prosecuted for Islamophobia under Labour.
I mean, obviously, it is a stupid story.
Yeah.
I mean, one way to spin it would be saying, well, yeah, you must be mad to risk it. But I'm glad that they are. Actually, genuinely, we talked about this a few years ago, and I thought this was going to be the start. I thought, actually, that could be the uprising that changed things, and sadly, it didn't happen. But the only thing that's vaguely amusing about this is that if you keep taking your hijab off, they will send you to a place to have your head looked at. I mean, not looked at. That's not what they want. Yeah.
Do you have a prong in the back that's stopping it?
Ultrasound, maybe. Important news now for GB News viewers, Steve, and for me too. This is the new address for the hoedown next week.
Yep, farmer tractor tax protest moves to new location because Trafalgar Square not big enough. The protest due to take place on the 19th of November. It was expected to exceed the original 5,000 to 10,000 estimates. Look, being stuck behind one tractor is hell.
Yeah.
So imagine what this is going to be like, and it's because of the change in inheritance tax.
Probably not hell if you're in a tractor.
No, I suppose. So I suppose just one person at the back going, oh, I picked the wrong day. I picked the wrong route for this. Look, I'm not the kind of person who would just say everything Labour does is wrong, right? So, again, I think my criticism might be really valid here. How do they keep doing this? How do they keep... Like, no one pre-election was going, look, whatever happens in this election, I hope someone sorts out these farmers.
Yeah.
No, this was at the front of no one's issue.
They thought it was cheap money, didn't they? They assumed it was cheap money because they thought we all resented farmers with their huge estates being handed down.
It's not even loads of money, though, is it?
No.
And the argument Rachel Reeves said it's only 1 in 4 farms. That's a lot of farms. Like, only 1 in 4 of the cores is gym, but you wouldn't say blanketly I'll sleep with any of the cores. It's a high fraction, isn't it?
Well, it certainly seems to have annoyed a lot of farmers. And I think most people understand the deal if you get into farming. Some people will treat it as a loophole, but basically you don't earn a lot of money. The margins are low. They live on 5-figure incomes, most of them, despite looking like landed gentry.
Yeah.
Sometimes 4-figure incomes, you know, in a bad year. And yet, you have a lovely estate that you hand down to your kids. That's basically the deal, right?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, just on that, the loophole. They keep mentioning the loophole that rich people buy land to get around inheritance tax. Well, close that loophole.
Yeah.
Because look who you've caught in with your solution. You're solving it by also affecting genuine farmers.
Who would have thought Rachel Reeves wouldn't have a grasp of the, the nuances?
Yeah, and I think it's going to really harm the government more than other mistakes they've made. I mean, I do believe that everything the Labour government do is wrong, but I still think I'm completely correct. But the government is against farmers. People understand what the government doesn't, that we need food.
Yeah.
You know, Rachel Reeves and whoever it was, John McTiernan said, I mean, he did a great job directing Die Hard, but he suggested that the country didn't need family farms. He's treating it like coal. He said it's like when Thatcher shut down the coal miners, but we can import coal from Chile or Australia or whatever. It doesn't really matter. If you run out of coal, you don't instantly starve to death. With food, you you starve to death within days, and people get very angry. All the riots in the Middle East are always linked to the price of bread going up. That's always the catalyst for
Every
it.
riot is a bread riot, it's a saying, and it goes all the way back to the French Revolution. And in fact, even in recent years, there have been like flash floods in certain parts of Spain, and we have no courgettes.
Yeah.
You know, it can happen that quickly. But I will also say, I don't think it is just about food security, although that would be sufficient. It is also about tradition and custom and the aesthetics of the countryside.
And the soul of Britain.
Yeah. So, no. Still to come, Donald and Elon doomed to break up, a cheeky ad for grass, and why your stoner neighbour could be getting better sleep than you despite that cheaping smoke alarm. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Young adults spend a few years living away from home at university, those who go to university, but many then have no choice but to move back in with their parents because of the rising cost of renting.
But is this an excuse, and are Gen Z or Z just being lazy?
No, I mean, what do you make of it, Debbie? Because we do have to have some sympathy, don't we, in that, you know, rents are very high, it's very hard to get a mortgage. There are issues there.
I think the push towards young people to go to university as well is not necessarily the right thing for a lot of people. And I think people should start work early. These guys leave their universities with a huge amount of debt, no jobs, or huge rent. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. So I think we've got to look at the work ethic and start it younger. Because I think it's so easy just to move back with your mum and dad, isn't it?
To speak like a Gen Zer, they would say that, well, it's OK for your generation, you had it easy.
Realistically, that isn't quite that true, because a lot of people then didn't go to university. This is a relatively new thing that everybody goes to university.
I have to say, what strikes me today is that you still have, amongst all these problems, not having enough money, going to university when perhaps you shouldn't be, all these sort of issues, you still get all these people saying, well, I'm going to have a year out.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. And I think the thing is, they say, oh, it was easy for you, but it wasn't really. We still had to rent places.
But the thing is with this debate, Debbie, is the generation we're talking about, Gen Z, who we're accusing of being lazy, have been raised by our generation.
Yeah.
So what have we done wrong that, if they are lazier, has made them like that?
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. We have Neil corresponding with the show. I stand with the farmers. If they close the country down and stop the food supply, I will still support them because we need them long term. I will get by. A lack of food supplies is how it will be permanently if they start being closed down. Sounds like he might be a bit of a prepper on the quiet. Anyway, Leo, we kick off this section with Scottish non-binary hate now, and I can't help feeling this is a waste of our time, even to refer to as a waste of police time.
Yeah, so this is again like the Alison Pearson issue. This is a serious thing that could affect somebody's life and lead to them going to jail. So a Conservative MSP has lodged a complaint with the police watchdog after his social media post that compared non-binary people with people who identify as cats was recorded as a non-crime hate incident. Although comparing non-binary people to cats is actually kind of generous to non-binary people because cats are real. whereas non-binary people are made up and just want attention.
Yeah.
So this is...
It's a non-crime affection incident.
Yeah, it's a non...
Cats want attention. Sometimes.
That is true, yeah.
That's true. So this is Murdo Fraser, Tory MSP, who's demanding an investigation, and the police haven't said why his tweet, breached the law or breached whatever rules when Humza Yousaf or J.K. Rowling didn't breach laws when they've said similar things that people have found offensive. Humza Yousaf, for example, had that rant in Parliament saying, just decrying Scotland for being white. He was spitting the word white in absolute hatred, visceral hatred for the whiteness. And of course, this was very fashionable at the time. Yeah, this, everybody was doing it, but it doesn't make it less hateful.
He didn't tweet it; he just said it in Parliament. So.
Yeah, but I've tweeted it since.
Is he not confirmed he's going to leave because he thinks Scotland is Islamophobic or something?
Yeah, he was talking about going back to Pakistan.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's lovely that he's. Imagine being, we're told, oh, he's the most Scottish person of all time. He's so deeply Scottish, and then he's like, you know what? I'm going to go back to Pakistan. It's like, I don't have that option. Yeah. Whatever mess you make of this country, Humza, I've got to live with it. I don't have a Pakistani passport.
You live down here now. Come on, you've lost it now.
Anything you want to add to that?
It's a non-crime hate thing again. Like, police, if you've done all the crimes, if they're all solved and you're like, we've got half an hour left, we either play solitaire or we do one of these. Maybe, but until then...
Pop down to the playground. You're bound to find something to do with a smashed bottle of Bucky. Steve, it's been at least 2 stories since we mentioned Elon Musk. But he's back again with Donald Trump in tow and a bit of armchair psychology from the start.
Yes, narcissist pals Elon Musk and Donald Trump are bound to clash at some point, according to everyone who calls everyone narcissist all the time. That's all the internet is these days, isn't it? But basically, Elon Musk is effectively the VP now. He's the most high-profile person. Poor old J.D. Vance must be crying, and his mascara will be... It looks like he's from The Cure, isn't he? Yeah. Trump's had Musk in Mar-a-Lago. The family photos had Musk in there as well, and he's been described as the guest that won't leave. I think if you've bought someone an election, the least you could do is buy them a few meals.
I think a long weekend wouldn't be unreasonable.
Exactly.
On the third day, visitors and fish and all that. But I think...
And it's a big house. He's not on the settee in the living room. It's not like Trump's like, I can't watch TV.
Trump's come out of the bathroom and found Musk.
Trips over him.
Reading all those top-secret documents. No, you're in the wrong bathroom.
Also, on a wider scale, they are obviously 2 phenomenally successful and go-getting and high, aspirational, ambitious men who have combined for a particular project and might conceivably start to grate on each other after a while. But I do think Musk, at least, is insulated by a high degree of autism. This is generally regarded as being a fact, isn't it? That it's OK to say. He laughs at it himself on X. That he's a high-functioning autist. They have a different sense of ego. They're not as easily... I think Trump might, start to get annoyed if Musk is getting all the press. I can't see it working the other way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also Musk has plenty of other things to get distracted with. And this is the press just being snide and trying to find some sort of angle to attack them on. The reality is they've got a great team. It's all planned out. Trump really needs Musk, and they're having a great time. They're focused on a higher calling, which is draining the swamp, and they're going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I will say now that Musk is in there with Vivek Ramaswamy, that's a killer team as well, because Ramaswamy is an extraordinarily intelligent, fast-talking guy. And so there's a massive, potential for, armchair psychology to go on there as well. I'm going to get little toys of all of them and have them move them around. Anyway, listen, the show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Thursday's front pages. The Daily Mail. Now council tax to rise by £110. We didn't cover that story, sorry. Telegraph. Police in appalling attack on free speech. Our top story tonight. The Independent. Revealed Trump push to sabotage Starmer's Chagos Islands deal. The Labour will miss its new homes pledge, says official leading plan, just as Kemi predicted. The Metro. Trump's defence chief is TV host. And he's a raw-looking son of a... The Daily Star, whittle in the shower to save the planet. That's it for tonight's show. Thank you to my guest, Stephen Leo. I'll be back tomorrow night at 11 p.m. with Nick Dixon and Scott Capurro. It's the Dream Team. If you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Otherwise, thank you very much for your company. Sleep well. I'll see you soon. Good night.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Thanks for joining me for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A lot of cloud around tomorrow. For many, it'll be a duller day compared to today. But again, for most places, not going to be much rain around. It has been a very dry start to November, thanks to high pressure by and large. Changes are on the way, particularly as we go towards the weekend. There is a weather front just slowly working south, but it's kind of fizzling out, bumping up against that high pressure. Will still bring some rain and drizzle, just trickling its way south across parts of central and eastern England through the night, eventually turning things a bit damp across the southeast. Ahead of it, temperatures could dip down to single figures, but behind it with a lot more cloud, generally a milder night than last night. Could again be some mist and fog patches forming through parts of southern Scotland where we do get the clearer spells, and it will be a damp and potentially drizzly start to the day across southernmost counties of England, so a very different feel here compared to today. Elsewhere, most places just dry and cloudy, but there will be some holes in the cloud here and there. Thick cloud, though, for northern Scotland means a dull and damp and at times drizzly morning for the Highlands and the Western Isles. Let's go through the rest of the day. Not a great deal will change. I'm hopeful the rain and drizzle in the far south should scoot away, and also that skies will brighten over central and eastern England in particular. Decent chance of seeing some sunny spells coming through. Parts of southern and eastern Scotland may also brighten up, but for many it will just stay pretty drab. Where it does, 10 or 11 the top temperature, a bit of brightness, could see those temperatures getting up into the teens, and again the wind's fairly light for most places. Friday we'll start to see a change, but again for most it'll be dry. Some light rain and drizzle over northern England, North Wales, turning wetter in the far northwest and windier here as well. This is an active weather front that's going to bring a change, getting gusty and turning soggy. Further south, generally dry with some sunshine, 10 or 11 degrees Celsius, but it's going to turn colder for all of us through the weekend.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's only 2 weeks remaining to win Christmas on us this year. First, we'll give you £20,025 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you £5,000 to spend on all of your Christmas presents, with a further £500 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. You'll get it all in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters